Introduction to After Effects. So we're going to start by resetting our preferences. I am on a Mac. If you are on a PC, you're going to hold down the Shift, Alt, and Control keys. On a Mac, you're going to hold down Shift, Option, and Command keys and click on the After Effects icon. So I am using After Effects 2020. Sometimes you have to hit it just right. So if you find that it's just loading without showing you the delete preferences file dialog box, then you're going to want to restart, quit and restart. And as you restart, as soon as you hit that icon, hold those 3 keys down. I am still holding my keys down. When you see the After Effects "Are you sure you want to delete your preferences file" dialog box show up, go ahead and say OK, and then let the program load. After Effects has a lot of stuff that needs to load, plugins and effects, things like that. So it takes some time for it to start up. Once After Effects starts up, this is the environment that you will see. And then shortly after that, this workspace, the home workspace, becomes visible. So we have a few things that we can choose from in this workspace. We can always come home. We can go to the Learn tab, which is also over here. So they'll show you tutorials, which are informational and pretty good. So they're worth checking out if you are not familiar with After Effects. You can set up your sync settings. So this is about Creative Cloud. You can create a new project or open an existing project. And if we had worked in this program before, we would see former projects that we had worked on before in here. So you could then select a file that you already have open. So we're going to start with a new project, and it brings us back to our default workspace. So let's talk about After Effects and its workspace and the way that it works. So After Effects needs a project to work in. So you just can't have nothing open. You have to have a project open. And so it starts you with an untitled project. And you can see that name up here at the top of my window. Within a project, you can have several elements. You can have footage, audio, graphics, and they would be located here in the project tab. You can also have like sequences, which are called compositions. So you can create a new composition from nothing, or you can create a new composition from footage. We don't have any footage in our project yet, so let's import some footage. To begin to import footage, the easiest way is to right-click. If you don't have a right-clicking mouse, hold down your Control key on a Mac, and we will go to Import. And we can say Import File or Import Multiple Files. So if you have files that are in multiple locations that you want to import, you would go here. If they're all in the same location, you'll go to File. Navigate to your footage, and in this case, I'm going to be bringing in graphics, not footage. I will import this Escape Graphics PSD file, which is a Photoshop document. We have a few different choices as to how we want to import this. Do we want to import it so that each individual layer is separate footage, or is it one file, one layer that's footage? Do we want to bring it in so that all of our graphics stay aligned and remain the same as they are currently? Or do we want to just import it as a composition and everything kind of snaps to its individual size? As you can see here, I have several files, and these all are going into an image or document that is not the same size. And I also can choose to create a composition or a Photoshop sequence. We're going to import everything as footage, and I will show you how to create a composition. Because it is a Photoshop document, it's asking me again, what kind do you want to import it as? Footage, composition, or a composition retaining the layer styles? I'm going to, and then beyond that, it asks what kind of layer options. Do I want to merge all my layers, or do I want to choose the layers? And I want all of my layers. So instead, I will choose Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. That way, it gives me the option to have editable layer styles. Say OK. So now that we have something loaded into After Effects, let's talk about the interface. So we have our menu headings at the top, and we'll visit here from time to time, but most of the things we'll either be doing from contextual menus or from within the panel itself. So right now we are looking at the default workspace, and if it does not look like this, you might want to go to Reset to Saved Layout. And we can also use some other workspaces that are in here, but for our purposes, we are going to be working with the default workspace for the most part. We'll be making our own custom changes as we go. Our toolbar is at the top here. Below that, on the left, we have the project window. So this is where our footage and compositions, etc., are located. We have a little preview window, gives us some information, and then inside here we have different icons that represent different items, and you can sort them as well. So here is the file that I brought in, the PSD file, and because I told it to come in as footage and to create a composition, what it did was it created a composition based on all of these layers being included in that one graphic, but it also made it into footage. So that means that there's time associated with each one of these clips or each one of these graphics. They exist for some time, and that is set up in your composition settings. This composition is essentially 30 seconds long. In our sequence in Premiere, we are working with a 30 frame per second movie, so we want to make sure that we set this up the same way. So I'm going to change this to 30 seconds and make this also 30 seconds long. And say OK. There's more information over here, and you can scroll to see it. The next area I want to bring your attention to is the composition window and the timeline. Both the composition window and the timeline demonstrate and show us the same stuff from time to time. So if I have a composition loaded into my timeline, so I'll go ahead and open up this one. So to open this, I can double click on it, and it just loads it right into here. And I can see its name up here, and this is the footage, and you can see that it's all the way down here. It says 30S for 30 seconds. It's also showing me all my layers right on top of each other. And I can move my playhead, but no animation has been set to it, so we don't see any movement yet. So the composition window is showing me this, but I can also look at each individual layer as well. I can do that from within here, my project window, or I can do it from inside the project window, or I can do it from the timeline as well. So if I want to look at just this layer by itself, I would double click on it, and now the composition window is not showing me the comp. It is showing me the graphic itself by itself. To be able to get back to seeing what the timeline shows, up at the top of the panel, you'll see that there are tabs. So I'm just going to click on my composition. But I can always go back to this image as well. If I don't want this loaded anymore, I can close it. Other items to note are other panel sets over here. So if you want to work with text, you would click on the Character tab to open up the Character panel. To work with audio, to see information, to see a list of effects. Also of note, in the composition window, is that you are able to view the screen in various ways. After Effects does work with 3D, so sometimes you have various kinds of views. Sometimes you work with a camera in 3D, so you would look at different camera views. You can have a transparent grid showing if you are hiding certain items. Oftentimes working in After Effects requires a lot of processing speed, and viewing the resolution at half resolution or a quarter can help as well. When items are on a timeline, here you'll see the time code where you are on the footage. And sometimes you want to zoom in or zoom out, and you do it through here. let's talk about the timeline. The timeline also offers you various ways to view your footage. Unlike editing programs like Avid or Premiere Pro, you do not see the footage on the timeline. To see the timeline compressed or extended, use this slider at the bottom. You can also use this indicator at the top. Use this slider at the top. This will also create the same effect. This handle will allow you to play just a certain portion of the video. Currently, this timeline is 30 seconds long. We want our finished edited product in Premiere to be 5 seconds long. So let's make this into 10 seconds long. So we have some leader and tail. To change the composition settings, go to Composition menu, Composition settings in the Composition window, and change it to 10 seconds. Say OK. The timeline is changed, and now you can see that the timeline ends at 10 seconds. It is also showing us the frames. If there's a layer you do not want to see, you can turn off visibility over here, and it will hide it from the timeline. If you have sound, this is the mute button, but these are just images and they do not have any sound. If you have so many layers that you don't want to turn off each individually, you can select to solo a certain layer and see that all by itself. You can also lock a layer so that you cannot move it. I can't move this. Also, you can opt to make it so that you don't see a certain layer in your timeline. We won't be making any edits to the layer 1 layer, so I'm going to set it to be shy. I still see it, but if I turn on this, it hides the layer from my timeline, but it is still available. Currently, none of these other settings make any sense to us, and we won't be using them just yet, so we'll come back to them in future exercises. The next area I want to bring your attention to is the quality and sampling. If you're finding that you are having slowdowns with your processor, you can turn this to various settings, and when you put it to the dashed line, that means it's at a draft setting. With the slash to the right, it is the highest quality rendering, and with the curve, it makes variable adjustments. All layers come with attributes that you can set. I don't want to move or change anything with the escape layer, so I'm going to lock it. I'll make it shy too. I do want to edit the run and the walk layers. I'm going to start by opening them each up. To do that, I'm going to turn this arrow down, and it shows me the transform controls. Further, I can open those up. I can edit the anchor point, the position, the scale, rotation, and opacity of each of these objects. To begin, I want to change my layer order. I want walk to be in front of my run layer, so I'm going to click and drag this below. So now walk is on top and run is beneath. These attributes can all be set using keyframes, and just like in Photoshop and in Premiere Pro, we can set those by turning on the stopwatch. We will work on editing timeline transform attributes in a future lesson.